I've heard it both ways.
Okay, we will call to order the Oak Island Town Council Special Meeting Budget Workshop of May 14th, 2015. Purpose is the presentation of the 2015-16 town budget by Town Manager Tim Holloman and Finance Director David Hatton, and then discussion of the proposed budget. So, Mr. Holloman, if you don't mind.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll go ahead and dive right in. Just to kind of give a little bit of background about the budget preparation. I believe all the department heads turned in their initial requests in December and January, so they've had some time to review them. Upon getting here in Oak Island, I try to make appointments with all department heads and go through their individual requests, and so I have a little bit of background on most of everything and why it's been requested. But if we need to get into real technical questions, we may have to call them in or call on different department heads if you have specific items. What we plan to do today is to go through the general fund portion of the budget, probably not get to the utility fund. I'll mention some of that just in the general summary slides. So that's kind of where we're at this time. Dave and I have spent several hours on this. It's almost days now, here and there on the budget as well. So that being said, the first slide just talks about conditions that influence the budget preparation. As some of you probably already know by now, the town experienced a decrease of 5% in the tax base this year due to that 4-year county revaluation. We were fair better than some jurisdictions in the county, and our housing construction rate has helped bolster the tax base and will continue to in the future. Not to get into too depth discussion on revenue neutral, but one thing to keep in mind, revenue neutral is a rate the board must show in this budget when they have a reval, so that the public can tell whether you're going below or over, and usually that is the equilibrium point for tax rates. This year's budget keeps last year's rate of 27.5 cents. So that is almost 1 3/4, a little bit less than 2% than revenue, or 2 cents for revenue neutral. So this proposed tax rate keeps us under revenue neutral. So we're keeping the same tax rate as last year, which is good news. The board has the option. You could increase the revenue neutral to pay off debt or increase reserves. Just so you know, when we calculated this, 1 penny of tax generates approximately $233,000. There are increases, however, in solid waste, inspections, water, that's 4%, should be 11.7. Didn't get a chance to go back and change that. And those water and sewer rates are according to the rate schedule we've already passed, and so that's just when it's becoming effective. So that should not be new information. There is no appropriated fund balance to balance the operational budget. The first budget draft did have fund balance appropriated, and technically, typically you don't want to do that because that's taking money out of reserves to operate the general budget for the next year. So we have no fund balance appropriation in this first draft. And also, as I mentioned, the building's up approximately 30%. So that's some of the things going on we had to take into consideration for this budget. That just shows you, I want to put this up on the board, the solid waste fees, they go, some are 20 cents, some are 11 cents, all the way up to $3. And you see most of these are on the rental house fees, etc. So that's what we're talking about this year as far as fees. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep on going unless you want to stop or slow me down. I'll go through the whole presentation, but if you want me to stop, I will. So if not, I'm going to keep on moving. And I realize this is the first time you've seen the budget, so I know you'll go back. And one thing we have to do before we leave today is decide when you want to meet again for the second budget workshop. So anyway, that's the solid waste fees. Oops.
Is that pretty much what the increases are due to what Waste Industries is charging us?
Is what's Waste Industries, our pickup charge? Yes.
Okay.
And to actually break even, that's what the fees need to increase. All right, this next slide is kind of a comparison slide between 2014 and 2015. You see the general fund, some percentage is actually going down overall. The water fund is an increase of 9%. Wastewater, an increase of 7%. Solid waste fee went down. Capital purchase of the truck is not in there this year. South Harbor has a capital purchase, it went up. Accommodations tax is up 20%, but that's because a repayment to, wastewater, is going into accommodations tax this year. And, actual increase is about 4% in the budget, 34 million as opposed to 32 million last year.
Mr. Holloman,
Mm-hmm.
the golf course,
Yes,
it says 13% increase. Of that increase is due to capital purchase,
a lawnmower.
a lawnmower.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get into that when we go to by departments, but that's correct. I think it's 28,000.
$28,000 for a lawnmower?
I think so. And lawnmowers are expensive.
28,000 is what they've asked for.
It's a special lawnmower, very special lawnmower.
Very special.
Very, very special
Very
lawnmower.
special.
Even not special lawnmowers are. When you think about lawnmower, you think about your home riding mower or your push mower, and it's a totally different situation. But so that's just a summary of the and comparisons. The way your budget manual is set up. The budget message, budget ordinance is not inserted this time. Those will be the last two documents put in based on all the input from these workshops and in between the workshops. You have the general fund, water, wastewater, the other funds, summary of capital outlay request, debt summary, debt service schedule, the revenue neutral explanation. You know, I told you the revenue neutral rate. There's a page at the back to actually go through how that's calculated. The debt summary for the town, debt service schedule. What was that? That's a revenue neutral explanation, fee schedule, and the fiscal policy and glossary. So those are the way your budget manual is set up. Also, and by department, in each department, once we start going by individual departments, you'll have an expenditure by line item sheet, and then behind that, the justification or explanation sheet, salary and debt service associated with that department, and then the salary and benefit detail sheet for that department. All right, now this is what everybody wants to get to. This is where the actual rubber meets the road, and we'll start going through departments. In the governing board, I've just highlighted, I didn't go through each line item, but you have some increase in salaries, and this is not because anyone's getting a raise. This is because it's election year, and there's some overlap in salaries after the election. There was a couple of people who will get paid a month or so at the same time the new board members come on, and so that's why that is. The $45,000 in audit is just in there to bring attention to that large expenditure. And one thing that you have this year that I don't know if you've had before or not, special projects. There's $20,000 in special projects for the board in case that sometime during the year there's an event or a project that comes up that you have not anticipated. So we left a little bit funding in that, just like the preliminary funds for UDO exploration, or if something comes up with the Wells Fargo refinancing or something like that. So that's what those funds are in there for, special projects. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, the part about the salaries increasing because of the election year, I just didn't get that at all.
You may have, say, November when somebody's elected and installed, you may have a month of overlapping salaries between the old commissioners and current commissioners. We don't usually prorate half a month.
So the month of December, when you had let's see, in December of 2013, so that would have been the 2014 year.
I'm trying to understand, why does that affect our budget?
We wanted to put
Your
money-
salary line out, you're paid out of your salary line.
Oh, okay, we will have an election in November of this year, okay? When council members or the mayor are installed, let's say I'm not running for reelection, okay? And my salary as mayor is $750 a month. Well, whoever is sworn in the December meeting will also get that month as mayor.
Exactly.
So you have actually two
Okay,
people.
all right.
You're not gonna run. Whoever takes your seat will get that same amount. You'll get the.
But you'll
the
still
lot.
you'll be paid out for yours, but they'll start that month as well.
Right.
Okay,
You'll see on that personnel cost data sheet for your all's council, Department 410, we put coverage of duplicate council after election, 35.
And you're counting all the council is changing?
So Carol, if you would run again, we would save that money.
Yeah, it'd save that
Yeah,
money.
if anybody runs again, we
And
save
don't
that.
forget,
money.
don't
you
forget,
go.
Jim and Scotty don't have to run again, so you don't have to double book them.
But you can if you want to.
Okay.
All right, and then.
All right, Tim, question right quick.
Yes, ma'am.
On the legal fees.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of reduction in lawsuits. So are you being very conservative in booking 176,000? Do you think we'll be that much? As much as we've had the reduction in the lawsuits that we've had to work with?
Hopefully it will be less, but we didn't want to undercut ourselves just in case. And like I said, we're just coming off that year, so it's not like we've had 2 years of null activity.
Yeah.
And we could reduce this, board thinks so. I mean, that's not, but we just didn't because, as you mentioned, being conservative and making sure we had budgeted enough for that particular line item.
Okay.
This year, we tried to break out professional services between legal and all other.
Yeah.
See, I think in the past, it's just been together.
All right, any other questions on that?
Yeah, item number 5710, election expenses. What does that cover?
That covers what we have to pay Brunswick County Board of Elections
Okay.
for our elections. And actually, that's a lower number, I thought, so.
That's an election year item too.
So. All right, any other questions?
What is
Okay.
staff development on council?
That's, it used to be travel and training.
Okay,
So that is your
never
meeting.
mind.
So, travel and training sometimes sends a negative connotation out there because
Mm-hmm.
when you go to events, you're not just traveling for the enjoyment of the event, you're traveling to do work for the town and that type of thing. So you'll see that referred throughout the document now, staff development.
On every department?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. I just didn't want people to think the town council had a staff. We don't.
No, you are your own staff.
We are our own staff,
You are
yeah.
your own staff.
Okay.
And one other thing that we changed the description, you remember from prior years, it used to be called assets under $5,000.
Ah,
We've changed that description to expendable equipment.
okay.
See expendable equipment in the prior years. that
There you
was
go.
Assets under 5,000.
And we've got $6,000 budgeted for equipment?
And some of that is IT equipment and expense. I think we have to pay a monthly service charge for email addresses and.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That and then.
The web host and part of the new software, okay.
Now, on any of these items, we didn't print a budget Bible, but if you want a breakdown, we can print out what, last year, what was spent in that item, or to date, what is spent in that item. If there's something that's really, you want to see, we can do that.
May ask you to send us a PDF. I mean, for goodness sake, that would be a printout this tall, okay.
And I would say not even PDF of everything. If you have a specific line item.
Yeah,
is
or
what I
a
would suggest.
department,
Uh,
yeah.
So, all right, any other questions about the town council?
Special projects?
Special projects, that is, what we just talked about,
I missed
undesignated,
it. What was it?
undesignated funds that for something comes up in the year that you might need for software conversion problems or,
He mentioned the Wells Fargo
Wells Fargo.
refinancing, if we need to pay those consultants.
so something that you come up with that you hadn't anticipated, that's the board's discretionary funding that you could do that with. Now, does not mean more than one board member come up here and do that. So it's not that kind of, you still have to consider and vote on it, that kind of thing. But you have the ability to do a project, small project. Okay, the outside agency funding request is basically a $31,000 total. We can spend some time on that if you want. I will call your attention to a couple of things. Everyone on here has submitted a request except, if you'll see the letter A over to the side, they have not sent in a request, but they have in the past. So we went ahead and allotted some money just in case we received a request. Brunswick Shores Radio Club was one of the newest ones added. The Vietnam Veterans Wall was added. We do not have the Brunswick County Blue Wave Trail in this draft.
Tim, if you don't mind, check with, especially the Beautification Club, but the Vietnam Veterans Wall. After their presentation Tuesday night, I went to Bob and I said, you guys be sure and send in a request for outside agency funding. And they said they had already sent in everything.
We have this packet that they all have to send in. They did give us one page, and that's where it came up with that money.
Oh, okay. So they need to send in a completed All right, then, if you don't mind, would you have time to email them and then whoever's in charge of the beautification club and let them know that you haven't received a completed, because they believe that they've already sent in everything they needed to.
Only one that's under agency request, other than the ones that, as
The
Tim said, with the
beautification
A out
club
to
is
the side,
on
that's the
there.
ones we
Huh?
officially got.
Yeah, he's, well, the manager is recommending, but they haven't sent in the actual request.
They're not indicated that they didn't.
Which,
The last three, the Beautification Club, the Shores Radio Club, and the Vietnam Veterans Wall, they have not sent in a request. He's got X's.
No,
No,
no, they
the ones that's
don't.
got the A's by them.
Has
One
not
that has an A by 'em, Betty, down at the bottom,
Oh,
over there on the right.
maybe a one-page request.
okay, so the Beautification Club has sent in their request.
And actually, I think since this was printed, Brunswick Shores did that one page, but before then, they didn't even do the one page when we first had it in here.
What is that? Brunswick Shores Radio Club?
I'm gonna turn that over to Counselor Danny Kaiser to explain that.
That is the local ham radio club. They have come up with a way to make a wireless network to use the town, and anybody could use in the event of a storm or something if we lose internet. Calabash has done it, the radio club down there, and the reason I got involved, I'm in the Brunswick Shores, it's a local ham radio club. Holden Beach is doing it. It's an experimental thing, and they're willing to, they're putting a lot of their equipment into it, but the $4,000 would be for we call them a tower monkey, to climb up the tower to run the wires for the cable and stuff. We don't have anybody that can do that because they're not certified to do that. But where this is going to be located, it's going to be on the 56th Street water tower. We have a building that was surplus by Verizon that was given to the town, and it's a 165-foot water tower, and it's also going to be tied into the radio club that has a tower at Bolivia. I forget their name. They have a repeater there. So if this thing works, it's going to be a wireless network to send data. I've worked with that at various parts in other parts of the state where during a storm or event, they can send data, faxes, and transmissions like that. Jeff, have you done anything with that? I know you're a ham radio operator.
Yeah,
Have y'all
we
done
actually-
anything up at?
We actually put one on our tower and went and got certified ourselves to be ham radio operators, just in case we had a bad storm, hurricane, and it knocked out phone service and we needed emergency personnel. It would be a way to get everybody to the facility and give that help that's needed. So we actually got base stations that we went there. I sent 3 of my guys plus myself to go get certified to be a ham radio operator.
They actually done a presentation at the last Emergency Services Advisory Committee, and it's hard for me to sit here and explain how this wireless stuff works. I know how it works, but I can't explain it like George Fryer, who was the engineer who's doing this. You were there, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
So it's something relatively new. It's going on in different places. Like I said, we got 3 communities as well as Brunswick County is doing it here. It's sort of a new, well, it's not brand new. It's been in the works for about 2 years.
Is this gonna be a one-time donation, or is this gonna be an ongoing thing?
Well, probably the one-time 4,000 to start up. I foresee next year it would probably be more of a maintenance, like maybe $1,000. Might not even be. We may not use all the 4,000 this year. We really don't know how much it's going to cost. Several of the members actually have repeaters and stuff of their own that they're going to give and donate and put there. But the bulk of this is for stuff that we don't have, such as the tower crew. That's about $250 an hour for a person to climb the tower. And then there'll also be engineering fee. Anytime we put anything on one of the water towers, it has to go through David Kelly's tower engineers. A piece of coax cable don't look like much, but when you got 165 feet of it, and that's times 5, that's different weight load on that tower. So that's part of the expenses. Lawman, you do ham radio too.
Yeah, I think it's a good deal for us, and it's great for emergencies. I don't see anything wrong with it.
We got a letter, at least I did. Thought that that meant that all of us probably got a letter. I'm not sure this was it. It was something, a Brunswick County rescue type operation or something. Do you remember getting a letter like that a couple months ago? I'll have to look in my stuff, because if this is not it, I don't see it on here, what I'm talking about, so.
I can tell you this is not it, cause,
Okay.
this group hadn't sent out anything.
Okay,
This just got started we've been working on it less than 2 months.
okay. I need to make myself a note to look that up at home then.
Now, one other key item on this sheet too, Oak Island Community Watch, we did not carry them over a request because they have not even used the funds requested this year, so.
Okay.
And that means if they don't request them before June 30th, the funds for this year are going away as well, back to the general fund.
Well, I've noticed that you have year-to-date expended and then estimated year-end expense, but all those have not sent in their request to get paid.
It's what we have there, that's $6,500.
Do they know that they should send them in?
I would hope so, that,
A lot of people don't, a lot of people think if they send in the request and the council approves it, then they don't have to send in a payment request. So,
But typically they do, so I mean, I guess.
typically they do.
Well, I mean, all these are repeat
I know.
people,
Yeah.
so they would know.
Well, I mean, the Senior Citizen Center, they've sent in they've sent in their request, but he has noted that they haven't, their payment request, but he has noted that they haven't sent in a funding request this year.
And I know Kathleen sent out letters, probably.
Okay, she did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Everybody that was on this list.
They've been
okay,
notified to apply, but they
all
just.
right.
Maybe, Ms. Cashwell could give us some insight on that.
No, she's not on the board. Are you on the board? Okay. But obviously, if Kathleen sent out letters to them saying, look, we've got this for you, you haven't sent in your request this year. And then those that haven't sent in their reimbursement request or their payment request. Because I know Lower Cape Fear Hospice would love to. And also I noticed on the recommended outside agency, last year we approved $3,000 for the chamber, and it's noted at $5,000 again. And last year we decided not to fund the airport, and that's the $7,000 is back on there again.
They sent a big packet.
Yeah, they always do. And
It puts it on to us where it's,
it puts it all on us. They don't, Southport, Bald Head, Caswell, St. James, none of those fund the airport. So I will say that again. And until they do, it's not fair.
Dave, let me make sure I understand one thing. 9530 Lower Cape Fear Hospice, we budgeted $2,500 last year. There has been none of that expended?
They have not asked for it, right. We went ahead and put the 20, and then this year they put another request for it.
And Kathleen sent out letters letting them know that they needed to send in their request for payment. I'm sure
No,
those
no,
people.
she sent out a letter.
No, not that, we just said, do I become.
To apply.
No, we haven't reminded anybody to.
Would you or Kathleen have time to maybe just email the people that haven't sent in the request for payment and let them know that they have to send it in before June 30th?
We could ask, Kathleen might have all the
Yeah.
information. She's got, she had a packet on everything, and if she would get them, she'd bring them to me.
Well, one question while we're here before we come back for the next work session then. I guess, out of these requests, are there ones that the board, the mayor mentioned the Cape Fear Regional Airport. Do you want us to take that off as far as?
Consensus of council?
Take it off.
Yeah, take it off.
Take it off?
And consensus of council to book $3,000 for the chamber?
Well, I don't think it's fine with me to get into this detail, but I thought today we were just mainly going to go over what's
Well, he
in
said
here.
with these particular ones that we know.
Just there's so much discussion on this, if you wanna go ahead and take it out, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna go ahead. and
Okay,
pick it
all
out.
right.
And then we can look, before the next workshop, look at the other ones and see if there's other ones you want to adjust up, down, or whatever.
So what do we do on the chamber?
3.
So the only two changes right now are the Cape Fear Regional Airport and the chamber.
Right.
And the cats,
Well, back
That's not on here.
on the chamber,
Yeah, where is it?
9517?
not
Oh.
funding cats.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're on there.
Scotty
17.
doesn't think we ought to pay to have cats spootered.
I don't see it's a purpose of government. Now, if you can show me it's a purpose of government to fund cats, I'll be glad to give them more money than that.
Well, you know, they didn't use the money we gave them last year, so does that
We
mean
didn't
the
give them
cats are
money
all
last
gone?
year.
Give me the money last year.
But they've asked for it this year.
We didn't
I know
give
they
them-
ask for it every year.
Did they not ask for it last year?
No.
Well, I would say one thing on the cats, just for the board's consideration. The more the spayed and neuter, the less cat population, the less animal calls you have. So you pay for it indirectly if you
Exactly.
don't have this done. Just, that might be one consideration. Anyway.
Well,
And-
why do we want them?
No.
Well, no,
This program reduces
I
the number of cats.
I understand what they say, but you still got these cats roaming around.
Uh-huh.
They're roaming around, unfed, unvaccinated.
No, that's not the case, Scotty. The ones that are taken into the feral cat program go
understand that.
to feral cat
And
colonies.
they're never
They are vaccinated
they're
and
never
fed.
revaccinated. They climb all over your cars.
Yes,
They poop in your yard.
yes.
They're a nuisance, and they're not a purpose of government.
If you did not have a spay-neuter cat program, the number of cats climbing all over your cars and pooping in your yard would grow exponentially every year because this program keeps them from breeding and increasing.
Not if the animal control officers did their job and picked them up.
There is no law to pick them up. There is no requirement. Cats do not have to be on leash any more than a fox or a deer.
Well, then
This
there
is a
needs to be
matter
one.
of that feral cats are a wild animal.
No, they're
that-
not. They're a domesticated animal
No.
that's turned out to become a wild creature, and it sits there, it has no shelter, no place to stay. I am opposed to the cats. That's all I want to say.
I'm very much in favor of keeping control of the number of cats we have on the island because it helps reduce the drain on the songbird population. If you help reduce the number of feral cats, it helps to keep the songbird population healthy. And yes, because this
millions of
program
birds.
reduces the number of cats.
They eat millions of birds that
I know.
spread seeds.
And if you didn't have this program, they would eat trillions of
Which is
birds.
more valuable, cats or birds?
Could we, maybe get some information from that organization about
Yeah,
how many cats they spay neutered last year?
Mm-hmm.
And how they spent the money?
and we don't have the packet that shows us the requests yet. And so
Yeah.
that's why I kind of would like to see the chamber stay on there till at least we see what they have in their packet to say why they need the money.
usually in the outside agency funding, there's a copy of the requests from each of the agencies.
I think
So-
we were just trying to limit the number of things we print out this year, but if you want to, do you want to see them as a board, or would y'all like to just come by individually and look at application packets? That might be better than trying to do it, just a suggestion, if you,
Okay, that's fine by me.
because we have, all you gotta do is Kathleen's office, and we can actually, put it somewhere
Okay.
where it's at. Just come by at your leisure and look at them and do that.
Why don't you just have her put them in the council office?
That's what I'll do on the council table.
That
Yeah.
way we
Exactly.
can come by here.
Good idea, we'll go ahead and put the information in there.
That thick
Yeah,
paper.
because like the airport sends in,
Oh, yeah, the airports.
And not just a blame upon, but, and we'll soon get off his outside agency funding. I'm sure y'all have heard Howie speak before at the airport.
Oh,
He
yes.
spoke to Kiwanis, week before last, and, talking about all the good things to do for Brunswick County. So they're probably, if you compare them in the chamber, the money they're asking for, they probably do as much for economic development area as the chamber does. Just a consideration, but.
but in the past, and when they first started funding the airport, Tim, we gave for several years $95,000. We have given a little over $250,000 to the airport in the last 10 years. Some years Southport helped fund, but Bald Head, Castle, St. James, none of them have ever helped fund the airport. So it's just, and I believe that Oak Island, for what we do for our visitors and our residents who actually own their airplanes and hangar them there, is much more valuable than what the airport brings to us.
I understand. All right,
We don't, I mean, we gave them the land. They've gotten all those federal grants. We helped them with the federal grants. We don't charge them taxes on their land, do we, since they're a federal agency? Yeah. They don't pay taxes on their property. What do you want? What else do you want?
you're getting a good deal. All right.
And I will say one more thing. Every year on the airport, they want this funding so they don't have to raise their hangar fees. You know what? If somebody is wealthy enough to own an airplane, I don't care if it's an individual or a company, I would prefer them raise their hangar fees than take tax money from families here on Oak Island. Okay. Yes, I say that every year.
All right, moving right along.
Play my drunk squirrel here in a minute if you don't hush. Okay.
The next department is administration, and the only standout items in there are the $50,000 for technology, for things, computers and things that may come up associated with that through this hardware and software changeover, and also just talk about debt service, continues for the town hall complex for 10 years. Dave and I, once we get through this budget process and everything's approved, we're going to really, in earnest, try to get some better rates for the town hall and the police department complexes. So you'll see a refinance package come in probably, between now and the 1st of August for that. So that won't affect the budget because that's based on the 10 years now, but we may be able to get, I know we'll be able to get a better interest rate and probably cut that debt service down, 3 to 4 years. So anyway, we're working on that. But as of now, that's the way it stands at this point.
And as Tim discusses the principal and interest for the departments, there's a schedule in the back for debt summary, debt service schedule.
Before we move on, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Under where we start getting, since we're in administration, we're going to everybody else, it shows a cost of living raising for everybody. But we passed an evaluation to be done for raises. Why have we went back after we paid all this money to get job descriptions and evaluations to do on employees, gone away from that and gone back to cost of living raises?
Well, if you want a detailed question, I probably need to get Sarah in here, but I think COLAs were a part of that as well as merit. No.
They passed it last year and I was objected to it last year, plus they got the performance. They got both of them last year. And this year, we don't even have the performance evaluation, we just got the cost of living rate.
No. And this year, and we hadn't quite got to that yet. I was saving a slide in a minute to talk about employee benefits all at one time, but just to kind of allude to that, a 1% COLA and up to 2% merit for a total of 3% is what this year. So it's not all.
Well, to me, it looks like COLA. It's not separated. You know what I'm saying? If you look at it, you see the COLA, but it shows nothing else for.
Oh, are you looking at the summary sheet?
What page is that on? Back? I'm just going by departments right now.
Where are you looking?
Where are you seeing that?
If you go to department, go to where personnel, it shows
Oh,
COLA only.
okay.
Oh.
It doesn't break it down to anything else but COLA.
He said personnel.
It's
says average
behind,
merit.
it's behind all the, yeah.
These things have numbers on them.
What's the average merit? Okay, I see what you're, okay.
I still don't know where you are.
I can't find where you at.
He's at the last
The,
page.
the very
in
last
the
page in that tab
the
section
Illustrated tab page.
says personnel cost data.
Employees here.
Found it.
I think it's on this.
Might be, yeah, and I show what I'm talking about.
It says
shows
current
it
salary and
there, but
COLA.
It shows no breakdown of evaluation, just COLA. You see what I'm saying?
Tim, should that be should that column be merit and COLA?
I don't know if we can do that or not.
Just tell it,
So-
David, tell it up there.
The way it's presented, there's a column, obviously you can see that the current, and the COLA is 1% of what everybody's base salary is at this point, from what I could get from Sarah.
That column that says COLA
Exactly.
is 1%.
Correct. And then, because we know, if there was a 1% across the board, everybody would get it. But on the merit piece of it, it's an effective 2%, as Tim said. If you look down below, about 3/4 of the way down, you'll see average merit. On this one, this particular one, is $16,318 for
Oh,
president.
okay.
We wouldn't know what percent everyone would get.
Right.
So we don't break that down by employee, you just put the one number, if everybody got the effective 2%.
Okay.
That's where it's shown.
And this is something else I want us to look at. We just seen, we had a whole group of new employees that came in. They came in at their starting pay, but when July 1st gets here, boom, they got a raise. They ain't made a whole year yet. Now, probably some of them maybe not in 90 days.
I need to check on that, because if they're still in their probationary period, I don't think they're eligible for a merit
Well, it
raise.
shows, like this one employee here, she's here and she's getting a raise and everything. And she's new. So it's showing that new employee already. I mean, I've got to ask these questions because it's
I
showing.
need to check with Sarah and say, and it may be true. I mean, it may, and it just depends on when they're hired, so.
And check with Sarah too, there's a certain percentage, after their probationary period that
5%.
they automatically get an increase after the probation. It's 5%? It used to be 5%. I know it's been lowered now, but there is a percentage they get after the probationary period as just an automatic increase in wages.
Why?
I don't believe
It's in
that's
the
automatic.
personnel policy, pardon?
I don't believe that's automatic. I think that's based on supervisor's recommendation.
Based
I
on
think they're eligible
supervisor's
for it.
recommendation?
I believe so.
We're gonna get Sarah to come in while we're discussing that, so she'll
Yeah,
come back.
maybe check that, because I had, in the past years, several years ago, I had a couple of employees that were supposed to have gotten that automatically. And they
Yeah,
came
don't
to me
necessarily
and
get it all.
were
A previous
upset that they
manager
hadn't.
A previous manager froze it. So there were several employees that, within a couple-year time period that were hired that weren't even eligible for probationary increase. And then they started doing that again, so
Oh,
there were
okay.
employees that were just left out of that.
Oh, that's,
If they do have any disciplinary actions, their probationary period can be extended and they will not receive.
yeah. Okay, well, we didn't mean to take up
No,
Sarah's time.
while she's doing that, and she goes, we can come back and ask those questions, but, let's see, if there's nothing else with administration, I'll move on to facilities maintenance, and then we can just come back and talk about,
Yeah, perhaps we can get Sarah to give us just a one-page review for the next budget workshop, and then we can go back and cover that. How about that?
That's fine, yeah.
She won't have to try to find the answers here and just,
Dave's going to get her on that. Facilities maintenance, the two, biggest items in there are the repairs to Nature Center roof of $30,000 and to replace a supervisor truck. And, the cost is not $17,000, that should be 170,000 miles is what that truck has on it. And so, that's the truck that George Napier drives, so that's included in this particular request. Other than that, there's no other outstanding items that are different from prior years. All right, I'll continue to move.
I'm sorry, you're just kind of moving a little too fast for
Okay,
me.
all right.
Because I don't see the number you're talking about, and then
On
I'm
facilities-
lost.
Okay, on facilities maintenance, the two,
what account number is it?
it is, count, 10, oh, that's 420. Facilities maintenance is 10,500. And if you look.
10,500. Oh, we're in the next tab
Yes,
section.
you're in the next tab.
I knew that part, but
If you look
I
at,
still don't see the number.
under, it's about midway through, and you'll see, some typing out to the right, repair at Nature Center facilities.
Yes,
Out of that 105,000, 30,000 of that is, the roof.
okay.
So the 30,000 is the roof, but there's 105,000 budgeted.
That's correct.
And,
And the other stuff, the 70,000,
The 75 was just, repairs, a lot of things are charged here throughout the years, it was standard. The
Okay.
30,000 was the biggest
so
increase.
you took that and added the 30
So we
to it.
tried to,
Okay,
we wanted to explain why it jumped from 75 to 105.
okay.
Question, Tim.
Mhm.
Do we have a capital anywhere in this book or no?
What
Capital
now?
projects?
Yes.
There will
Yes,
be?
we have a capital reserve summary or capital expenditure at the back.
That's on down in the
I'm just
tabs.
checking, cause I got a paper, some things that said need to be repaired and.
Okay, so then back on facilities maintenance, so you were talking about a truck or something?
Yes, on the very last, line item, 10,500,
Yes.
7,200, that's the replacement vehicle.
All right, now, okay, but you said that was not the cost?
That is, well, on the slide, I had 117, it's supposed to be 170,000 miles, and the cost
That's
is
supposed to be
28,000.
170,000 miles, and then the cost is 28,000 on the,
That's the truck that George has now.
yeah, right here, that,
Okay, where it says a 17,000 on your slide, it should say
170,000
170,000
miles.
miles.
I think when I was making the slide, I got interrupted, and I went back, I didn't change it.
Well, at this point,
Stick around for a few minutes.
Okay, now I'm better.
I'll let you know in a second. All right, so that's it on the facilities maintenance as far as any kind of new or increased expenditures.
And this is part of the general fund?
Yes, it is.
The maintenance of the beach and waterway excesses,
That's,
is that not accommodations tax instead of general? Shouldn't that be funded from accommodations tax?
I think there is some that's been funded in the past from both of them, Mayor.
we didn't change anything, so
But
evidently.
that was one thing the council's been working on for years, is something like that, if it should be funded from, if it's for beach maintenance, that's accommodations tax.
I'm real hesitant to change it if it was in there in prior years, so I don't know if,
I don't know. I thought we had,
Well, last year it budgeted for, this was 10,009, and they've spent from this department $4,600
yeah,
so far.
so I
Okay.
mean, it's.
I think
that-
whatever council thinks, I just,
I may be wrong, but like George has to replace handrail or steps or something on one of the crossovers. I think that's what this kind of money is.
yeah.
Work at the cabana and that sort
But that's beach maintenance, that's access maintenance. So I just think that in order, Bonnie went through and fixed all these transfers from department to department to department. And we might have missed that one, I don't know.
Yeah, that may be something, I don't know if we want to tackle it now. Some towns have beach maintenance, or beach management tourism in addition to, like dredging funds and that type of thing, so we can look at it now, but I mean, if the board is okay, I'd love to leave a little bit of money in that, because I just don't think we have trained staff on how to charge that money, so I don't,
Oh, okay.
so, but it's a good question, and
All
like I
right,
said,
Dave, that's what you can
Ask
do.
for 15,000.
and now since I know there's a need for it, we can do something about it, but
Oh,
I.
yeah, the public works asked for the 15, correct, that we need to spend the money, but in my opinion, it should be funded from accommodations
Well,
tax
let
and
me-
not from general.
Well, let me also say this. Between all the strings that coming on accommodations tax, I think it's always gonna have to be supplemented to do some of this kind of work. So I don't know if the general fund can ever totally get away from doing this. That's one thing to think about too. But anyway,
Especially when we try to start funding it for a beach renourishment.
exactly, you want as much money as you can going into that.
Spreading this out to the departments. Some of this-
No, also on some of the, maintenance repair of, let's say it's buildings and grounds, some of this you'll find in, departments again, because, try to get departments a little bit more accountable for their requests for maintenance needs. They saw this fund as a go-to fund, and so now we're putting it back in departments, and if they call on George would charge it back to that department for the work he's done.
So we're gonna hold them accountable.
Okay.
because they all caught on to this, that, well, I can get this done, and so it doesn't cost me anything.
Not gonna cost my budget anything, yes.
Exactly, and so now that's not,
Before, they're gonna eat this cost.
they request it now as charged to their budget.
Okay.
And, Mayor and Council, while we do have Sarah in here now, you mentioned having her do a report on the, salary and explain the COLA and the cost of living and the merit. Do you want her to take a little bit of time right now before we go on to do that while she's here?
You guys want her to, Sarah, can you, off the top of your head, explain, where he's got the salaries? We were looking at the, administration, and I'm sure it's in all departments.
Every department.
But Counselor Weinkauf was asking about the column for the automatic COLA, and then he was asking about the merit. And the merit, Counselor Weinkauf, if you don't mind,
Well, it's
phrase
pretty
your
much
question
Dave
for her.
explained it, it's the 1% COLA, 2% merit. I mean, that's, what else?
Effective
It's an average 2% merit.
Well, the question was, I mean, Counselor Weinkauf had several questions.
Well, the main question was, when we went through this study to do job descriptions
So
and
the MAP
performance
study in
evaluations,
2013?
the whole thing was, when they got raises, it was based on performance evaluations, not COLA. Because if somebody's not doing a good job, you're still giving them a raise no matter what with COLA, where performance evaluation will take some of that away. My question was, why did we go back with COLA again after we paid all this, taxpayers paid all this money for the evaluations to be done?
Well, you and I got voted down on that last year.
But it's a legitimate question. Taxpayers paid a lot of money to have
That's a
this
question
done.
for your fellow council members, I
Okay,
think, Jeff.
It's not a question for Sarah, it's an argument among us.
Right.
But
It
that
is
was for last year. This
It's
is
not
for
an
the
argument,
year.
it's a discussion.
Okay,
It's
all
a
right.
discussion.
I understand,
There's
and,
still a 2% merit,
Up to 2%
average
merit.
2% merit.
yeah, last year-
Based on performance, right?
I'm
last
talking
year
over
it
you
was
guys.
Right.
different.
COLA is based on a cost of living,
Right.
The merit is based on performance.
correct.
I believe last
Evaluations
year,
determine that, right?
Sorry?
Their evaluations, the
Yes.
department head's evaluations, what determines that.
Yes.
So I don't see where it's a big deal myself.
well, I believe last year, and Counselor Painter just reminded me, she and Counselor Weinkauf did not want to include the automatic COLA adjustment. They wanted to do merit increases only, and
You got voted down.
you three voted to keep the automatic 1% COLA. So do we need to get a consensus from council?
And actually, I think last year it was a 2% COLA and a 1% merit.
Yeah,
But
you may be right.
Yes, last year, there was a 2% COLA in July,
Okay.
and then there was a 1% merit.
Okay, so we can have this discussion
later. and-
Yeah.
later.
And have a.
Okay, but the other question you had, Jeff, was about the new hires
Yeah.
and the,
We know we just got new hires that come on, but as of July 1st gets here, they automatically get this COLA raise, they get everything else, without any 90 days or a year or anything.
So a COLA would come at would be a cost of living adjustment. So that would happen July 1 if it were approved in the budget. And no new hire would get that 1%. Anybody that was hired after July 1 wouldn't receive that 1%.
I'm talking about the ones that just came on.
Like on May, like anybody that came in March or April, they would receive a COLA, but they would not be eligible for a merit until they've completed their probationary period, which, depending on which department they're in, is either a 6-month or a 1 year. Then they're not eligible for a merit increase until the completion of a probationary period.
So you're saying no matter how long anybody's been employed, if the council approves of 1% COLA, then they automatically get that adjustment as of July 1st?
Correct.
So, I mean, they could be employed 3 weeks.
Correct, because it's considered a cost of living, so it's basically a cost of living, saying the cost of living for these employees have gone up 1%.
But not merit, so that's
It's
the
not
key
a
thing,
merit.
so it is,
Right.
cost of living, and cost of living is basically, social security increases and also the gross domestic product, that's where you get those
Right,
numbers.
you would get those numbers from what you would see in average over the national, whether it's through Social Security, gross national product adjustment, things of that nature, that they would determine what.
CPI, yes,
Yes.
CPI.
Yeah,
What a
CPI,
typical-
Consumer Price Index. All right, council, if you don't mind, be looking at that, and I would think across all departments, based on what Councilor Weinkauf has discussed, and at the next budget workshop, you can have a consensus or a motion to inform the manager whether you want to keep the 1% COLA as well as the average 2% merit. Is that,
Yeah, and one
that
final
that
thing
cool?
before
Okay,
Sarah leaves too, just because the map study was done, the map study didn't, I think, point out that you couldn't do any COLA or not do a COLA.
right.
I think if you talk to Becky Beasley, she'd actually recommend doing a small COLA to try to keep everything from getting compressed.
Keep
And-
the growth going consistent with the averages, and then not get into the situation where you were several years back where you had to do that big makeup amount.
Yeah,
So anyway, I just want to make sure that just because she did a study, you didn't think, it didn't mean you couldn't do a COLA, or so, you see what I'm saying? Because that's, anyway.
Right.
Thank you.
and I assume that just as with the outside agency funding, if any of the council members have any question, all you gotta do is call Sarah.
That's
Okay.
it. All right, let's see, get back on in line here. I think-
Okay, facilities maintenance.
I think we finished facilities maintenance unless anybody has a question. And we can move to police department. The main increases in the police department this year are 2 police vehicles. And we are aware that you have a 150,000 mile replacement cost or replacement threshold. These vehicles we're asking to replace during the 15-16 budget year. They will hit these items. They're scheduled to be replaced towards the end of the fiscal year, but we need to go ahead and budget for them now if we're going to purchase them. They're actually, the chief has 5 vehicles, so the 2 vehicles this year, and there'll be 3 vehicles in 16-17. So just trying to make sure we spread out the capital costs so we are not hit all at one time with replacement. So I don't know if you have any questions about that particular line item or particular department.
Which line item is that? Capital outlay?
Capital
Okay.
outlay.
All right. Never mind.
510.
And there's actually some other items in the 75,948, but the bulk of that is the cars.
Okay.
He's got 12,500 in there for, something that he has to do over there in that side of the building for the internet.
Okay.
We don't have on this side.
All right.
Any other questions from council?
And then animal control, no significant changes in that department. Fire department, debt service increased to pay off the 4 fire trucks. No other significant changes in the fire department. This is going to be the next one, and Steve's back there too, so I'm glad to see him, in case you have any questions. Community development, or development services. We do have the Holland $75,000 fee for the comprehensive plan plus UDO, so you're already familiar with that. In addition of an inspection position, $50,000 plus benefits. We anticipate an increase in inspection fees is forecasted with this budget. If the board approves it, should bring in about $25,000. Just the workload of inspections and spreading out the work between the zoning and planning and inspections duties. We feel that an inspection position is necessary. And so if you want to discuss that a little bit, or if you want to talk more in depth about it, we're looking to try to get a level 2 inspector, possibly level 1 probationary 2, to help out the workload. So, if you just come in here and see the hours Steve and the staff put in, I think you will probably see some of the need for.
All you have to do is drive around town and see the number of residences that are going, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When you go down my street and then one street over on Yacht, there's 9 being just completed or under construction. And then that 67th and Yacht, 62nd and Yacht, I mean, that's gonna be, so this is just somebody to go as they're building and just do the inspections and pass the framing and all that.
Electrical, mechanical, plumbing, all trades, site inspections, height inspections, the whole 9 yards.
You only have 3 people doing building inspections right now, right?
You, John,
Who's the 4th one?
who's the 4th one?
Josh? filling
Oh,
in?
Josh and Brooke and Steve.
And Chad,
Oh, and Chad, yeah.
you know, he does the zoning and.
So Chad is actually doing building inspections.
He is, yeah.
He's limited, he's probationary too.
One.
Well, probationary also, but probationary 1.
Yeah, he's
Said it's on the payroll summary.
Well, I'm looking at it, but it doesn't say,
It says full-time 8, building codes, it says 1 building inspector.
says Chad Stramdusky is a code enforcement officer.
Correct.
But he's
We're all
doing-
considered, Donna Coleman and Chad are code enforcement officers. Brooke Russell, I believe he's been senior code enforcement officer where he's working more with the level 3 structures. I'm building codes administrator where I'm charged with, I do inspections as well and charge of department head duties and responsibilities. Josh is charged of planning and zoning,
Okay.
and he will step in as needed and do inspections. And then Chad, we're splitting him between zoning and building, but there's a lot of zoning going on, so he's leaning more toward the zoning than he is the building with the new implementations of the polycarts and the house numbers and the other normal routine
Yeah.
requirements for zoning. Donna Coleman, she's a split inspector as well because she's got some shared responsibilities with CAMA. I'm also an LPO officer, so I share some of the, I'm actually in charge of the LPO program. Donna is the permitting officer, and she reviews all the applications, and I step in and help out when needed. She's also our floodplain administrator, where she has the responsibilities for maintaining the town's flood certification or CRS rating points that we see. And of course, I've background with flood as well, so I step in and help out on that as well. So it's, we've got too many hats for some people to wear.
And also Chad is kind of doing all-on-job training with inspections.
He is.
And this position right here, we're not looking for somebody who is in a training mode. We're looking for somebody to come on the ground and start doing inspections day one.
Boots on the ground. Right?
Yeah, so this will be a little bit different than, so Chad does not give us the full flexibility for inspections that we'd have with a full-time, already trained inspector.
I did talk with Roger Henderson with Lowe's Foods, and they are moving forward with permitting. They want to get 2 buildings permitted in June and start construction in June with the tentative opening date mid-March of 2016. And during the 15-16 cycle, they're going to start building the 2 other buildings that they're proposed to do, and those are going to, they're going to start those as the tenant space fills up. And there are people marketing that. It does not include any of the out parcels where there's people looking at those parcels that are currently looking at some restaurants. I probably can't say everything that's going in that, but it's, and just that permit alone for the 2 buildings, if they get it in June, we're looking roughly, I had the numbers written down, I didn't bring them with me, but it's about $27,000 just in the building A and B. And I think total with the other one, it's going to be pushing almost $40-some thousand.
You almost need to put an inspections office up there at Midway and 211 and just keep them up there. You'd save on gas money.
Kind of off the question, off the subject, but not really. That apartment project that's being built up there off 211, is that in Oak Island?
Which apartment building?
The apartment project that's being built on the right, on that past Midway Road?
No.
It's not in Oak Island?
I have not seen anything with that.
Well, they're building buildings in there now, so I
Yeah,
guess
that's
it
not
was,
us.
you know about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have we looked at reaching out to Brunswick County to get help with inspections or a contract service?
I did. They've actually got a position advertised now for a level 3 across the board inspector, and he's seeking a second one. I did call and talk to, yeah, they have no help to loan us.
What about other towns who may not be
Check.
booming like us?
I've checked with a couple other municipalities, and nobody has anybody to loan.
Contract?
I did reach out to another young lady that worked with the with the county during their change up over there that was contracting with them. She's currently not available. She said possibly she could be available by July
On a contract basis?
on a contract base. But she wants a full-time job. But I don't think we'll be able to afford her because of her credentials being level 3 across the board.
When you think about it, a full-time position is kind of warranted. And what happened, there's not as many inspectors to pull from out there because since 2008, with the demand, the economy went down, a lot of people didn't get their certifications and that type of thing. So, and inspectors are like town managers and other public officials, a lot of them retiring. So it's very slim to actually be able to find an inspector out there to hire. But anyway, we're optimistic we can find someone, but a full-time position will attract that person, and I think we've got the volume of work to handle it. And,
Okay, Counselor Medlin wants to, before we take a quick 5-minute break, one question, please. I worked with Steve in the past, it was when somebody builds something on Oak Island Drive in front of the sidewalk, if they damage the sidewalk, they have to pay to have it repaired. I've seen some of these homes that are being built on Yacht Drive where it was just resurfaced, and they've got big, deep gouges in the asphalt. Will our inspectors make sure and look at damage to the infrastructure, to the roads, as well as the sidewalks, before they give them a CO?
We do that currently.
Okay.
Sometimes it's hard to prove whether or not they damaged it or not, but that policy that we put in place does help.
Well, they just resurfaced Yacht Drive just before these homes were built. And since they resurfaced it about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, they're building homes and there's gouges in the asphalt from their equipment.
I'll take a look at that.
Okay.
There are some, I've seen them.
Yeah, he said he's seen them too. I would be able to tell you that those gouges were not there before they brought their equipment in, on at least one of them. And it really made me a little bit upset that they gouged out our new resurfacing, all the way down to the old. Okay.
$800,000.
Yes, $800,000 worth of resurfacing, and their machines are digging into it down to the old surface.
Steve was checking, if we've got a policy, I hadn't reviewed the policy, see how we bill them or that type of thing, or assess them, but we'll check it.
Okay, let's go.
You want to take a break a second?
5-minute break, please.
All right, Madam-
Okay, we will call the let me call the meeting back to order. Okay, go.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. We're at Public Works Administration now, and unless you have any questions on that, there's no changes in this significantly. Salaries, everything roughly the same, so no changes on Public Works admin. Same thing for fleet maintenance. They're not asking for any other big capital expenses this year. Okay, Public Services Operation is the next big one.
What, public service?
Public Services Operations,
Public Works
or
operation.
Public Works Operations. And there is 300,000 we're expecting to get from Powell Bill, and we also have that going out the door and estimate 300,000 in paving. We'll either do some streets with that, one section of street, or we are looking at currently right now on Ocean and Beach Boulevards, trying to pave those short sections of streets in between the paved sections and getting rid of our gravel streets. Eventually, if we get rid of gravel, we'll no longer need a motor grader, et cetera. So it's either one or two of those areas we're going to spend that 300,000 this year.
So you can look at that, and you and George can work up proposals for council on, so they can choose whether to resurface or just to initially pay.
If the board budget's approved 300,000, we'll come back with streets, but I mean, if you don't pave this year, we won't come back with any streets, because you're authorizing us basically to go out and look for streets to pave if this budget's approved up to $300,000.
Isn't it customary to charge the property owners by linear feet when you pave? Well, there's nobody, they've already been charged, because those, yeah, okay. I'm sorry, those houses either face Beach Drive or Pelican, one or the other, okay.
One thing you need to look at is 76th, 77th Street on the Ocean side, where they join Ocean Drive, that both those streets are in really bad shape. That really needs to be a part of what we do next.
And just to let you know, out of the big paving project this year, as far as like any Powell Bill reserves, we only have about 150,000 in Powell Bill reserves. So if we spend the Powell Bill coming in, we'll be able to do about 300,000 every year. But at some point, we may not want to spend for a couple of years in bank to do a bigger project. But I think we've got enough small projects now, we can do that for a couple of years. But we're not going to recommend depleting that $150,000 fund balance at this time, because if you have some kind of emergency street thing come up, we need that money for that. We feel like we need that money for that.
Before they started this resurface, well, the second phase of the resurfacing, when they found out that the first phase was review of the roads before the construction of the sewer system, they did another review of the condition of the roads, and they listed out the ones that were the worst, and those are the ones that they resurfaced. Would it be too much trouble for George to look at that and update that list on the ones that have been resurfaced, and then get a new list together of the worst ones that he would recommend to do in any next resurfacing program?
I think we can do that.
Okay. Not, don't pay to have it done all over again, just let him look at that list and see if he thinks that they are the worst.
And like I said, you got resurfaced, and then the gravel ones are the worst of the categories, because they're not even surfaced to start with, so.
Yeah. But you say if we paved those side streets, the ones that are now gravel or dirt, we wouldn't have to have, what was it
The
you said?
motor grader to scrape them. We have to regularly scrape them to keep them in good shape. And we've got
Okay.
to fill the gravel and that type of thing, so that would be eliminated eventually.
Perhaps you could work with Dave and George and get an annual cost of what it takes to keep and maintain that motor grader as a comparison? And how much does it cost to keep that thing in operation every year?
And you wouldn't have to buy one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I noticed we're not budgeting anything for mosquito control. Why is that?
I'm not sure why they didn't request anything for mosquito control unless they've got it in a different area. So we've expended $12,439 as of right now. So Dave, you don't know anything to add to that either, do you?
We need to look into that, because that's something we need to do.
And we can probably bring it up to the current year's funding level.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
We'll never get rid of all of them, but it certainly helps.
Yeah, he didn't, I mean, they didn't put any money in.
I know. Okay. Anybody else have any questions on the Public Works operations? Okay.
Trying to leave George alone for a little while. He's kind of been overwhelmed since he
Oh, I know. We need to get somebody,
with the herd.
either name him permanently and get somebody to take his place. I don't know how you're ever gonna find anybody that can do as much as George has done. I mean, he's everywhere.
He is everywhere. Dave, I see one thing, the assets inventory, expendable equipment, that didn't
Yes,
get changed
I
from that.
caught that one.
All right, Beach Ambassadors is the next account, 10,575, no changes in that. Okay, next one is part,
Well,
What are the salaries?
Yeah, you got salaries under beach ambassadors?
this department, last year was not budgeted, and Skip Cox is the beach ambassador, and we put $5,000 in there for him. In the past, or at least last year, I think he was being paid out of accommodations tax.
Why?
I don't
I
know.
mean, it was volunteer.
Yeah, why is he being paid?
There was some money budgeted last year to pay him.
Okay.
I remember that.
But his salary.
I don't
is-
remember it.
I
Is
remember
it sort of
that.
like a volunteer
Stipend.
stipend, like we used to have with the fire department, that sort of thing?
I would assume this is, it was there, so I didn't change it, because, it was already been authorized in the past, so.
Yeah, as you can see for the last, for what this year, there was no money at all.
I would say
Um,
Skip, as far as I've seen so far, he goes to all the Friday staff meetings for Public Works. So he stays very on top of what is going on, so I mean, I can only assume that's why there was a stipend made, as the mayor
It said the
mentioned.
13-14 actual was
Thousand.
operating expenses 11,701.
What did we, okay,
Well, under expenditures,
okay,
it says salaries, benefits, 1120, and then operating expenses for fiscal 13-14 actual, 11,701.
Right.
That must have been something to get that program started or something somehow.
And then last year, there was nothing.
Yeah,
Well, I know they had to buy, didn't they buy the gator?
yeah, that's probably what
that would have been
was.
in capital outlay, it should have been though.
Beach Preservation Society bought that.
But our current budget has nothing.
Right. There was nothing in there. But some of the costs they've incurred is being, in beach, accommodation tax.
Well,
But is it a salary?
Well, it's a stipend, but even like the, the board is included in salaries, but it's a stipend, it's not a salary, it's just where it's paid out of. That's the line item it's charged to because we don't have two separate salary line items.
But I mean, is that something that Steve just decided to do? I mean, I don't know anything about it.
Was it not, I was thinking we approved it last year.
I don't remember, I do believe that he would be worth some volunteer stipend, but I don't remember the council discussing, wages.
Well, that opens a whole door of,
Yeah,
I mean,
if he's an employee instead of a volunteer.
I mean,
No,
believe me,
he's
I
not, he's
think,
not an employee, he's not, and just, so he's not an employee.
Okay.
And, but you guys are not employees either, and
On
you,
our prior budgets, we had volunteer stipend instead of salaries because on a volunteer stipend, you would not pay Social Security and Medicare, or, unemployment.
Oh, yeah, you do pay Social Security on your volunteer firefighter stipend.
Yeah, we have Social Security on the volunteer.
that
You have
comes up-
Social Security and Medicare, but you don't withhold federal and, they didn't, I got the volunteer stipend one year. One year, they sent me the volunteer stipend, they didn't withhold any Social Security, Medicare,
Yeah.
or anything.
Dave, did, John submit this, or who submitted this department?
This one is the ones where I went through, where I found, what really
okay?
raised the issue was repairs to that gator they have. They knocked the windshield out of it, and an invoice came through. And I said, what is this? And who, you know, they said, and it was charged back to accommodations tax. And I said, wait a minute, what is that? You know, and
This
that's
should
when I
be
started
paid
trying to
out of the Beach Preservation Trust Fund.
Skip, you think?
Personally, I don't think it
That's a
should be
program
paid.
of the Beach Preservation Trust Fund Advisory Board. If it's
We-
paid.
we have not talked about doing any compensation for volunteers. I mean, we have a lot of very valuable volunteers.
Well, it looks like, it's not getting paid this year, there's nothing under current 14, 15, or it,
Well, that was the question. Why was that added?
Right.
like I said, Dave's checking, because there's been some change around, so I don't know if, did he have anything paid out of another?
Well,
And if council does approve that, I do believe that should come out of the Beach Preservation Trust Fund, because that's a program developed by them.
Okay.
If
Well,
it's paid.
We haven't,
there's no volunteer incentive or anything like that in beach preservation.
Right, so how did it get added under how did we open up another department, beach ambassadors, rather than putting those expenses to the Beach Preservation Trust Fund,
I don't know if the Beach
number
Preservation.
one, and how did we get salaries added to it, number two?
I think it's easy to take the salary portion out of it. I'm not so sure it's easy to take the beach preservation, because I thought there was a history of the town paying these.
That's what we kind of heard, that there was like a history of it. It used to be this way, and then for the last couple of years, and it dropped. And then,
I don't remember this council discussing, I remember them discussing, they approved the Gator. But I was thinking that was paid out of the Beach Preservation
was.
Trust Fund,
It was.
not a new
That's what-
department, not
what
general
it was.
fund.
because if you look under this beach ambassadors, again, I don't know what this one would have been, but in 2013-14,
Yeah.
capital outlay, you spent $9,497.
That came out of the beach preservation.
That should be paid out of the Beach Preservation Trust Fund, not the general fund.
Was it paid out of the general fund?
Well, according to the general ledger from 2013-14, it shows it's coming out of 94-97 at beach ambassadors.
Wasn't approved by us.
No.
When that mayor, commissioner,
we've only had the Beach Ambassador Program 1 year,
That was last year.
2014-15.
Because see, in beach ambassadors, a salary number of 1,040 in 2013-14.
Dave, can you look back on that before the next budget session? Number one, look back on that year and determine,
What it was?
yeah, I'm sure that capital outlay was a Gator. Number two, I mean, that year's done, there's nothing we can do about it, but this department should not be here. That should be rolled into the Beach Preservation Trust Fund.
okay.
I mean, I know you can't get rid of it since it's already in the audit.
Well, one thing, I need to check on the Beach Preservation Trust Fund, because I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty positive we could go ahead and take out the salaries, because that looks like it'd be taken out, and that would only leave $1,100, $1,000 for departmental supplies and $100 for auto supplies, because they go on the beach. But that may be applicable to this, because they're out there on the beach helping with tents and that kind of thing. So what I would recommend at this point, we can get you some information, but to come back and just change that department to spending $1,100 just for departmental supplies and auto supplies, and leave it at that.
And fund it from the Beach Preservation Trust Fund.
No, well, I don't know.
That's a program developed by and suggested by the Beach Preservation Trust Fund Advisory
You
Board.
think so?
Yes, yeah. If you look back on the record, they developed that program and the council approved it as far as buying the gator and so forth, but it was to be funded from the Beach Preservation Trust. Am I wrong, guys?
Okay.
Am I right?
Well, let's add this.
All I know is,
If it's funded from beach,
We're confused too, not having the history.
yeah.
Yeah,
the gator was bought out of the beach, was supposed to be bought out of the Beach Preservation Trust Fund.
yes.
That's the 94, 97. And if that was in fact paid out of the general fund, then the general fund needs to be reimbursed
Reimbursed.
that amount.
Can you reimburse a fund 2 fiscal years after the
No.
money was, yeah, we'll just, that's history. We can't do anything about it.
Okay, well, let me go one other thing on this, because Dave and I talked a little bit about this. Their money's funneled through the town, the way I understand. They don't have it would be nice if they were a 501c3 and just put out.
Tried to get them to do that and they refused.
If they're funded from outside, well, that money's funneled through here, so we'd have to show a revenue line item, Beach
Right.
Preservation Trust Fund, and they'd have to give us money, but then the thing about it is, if they don't give us money, we'll look into the history, but I'm not sure how that's going.
Well, all the,
Their estimated revenue for this year, they told me that they get fundraisers 6,500, donations 1,000, memberships 5,000, or a total 12,530.
right. That's about what it runs.
And that's what they
And
told me.
they submit, that's a committee, or it's a board appointed by the council. They submit a budget every year, and their membership fees and their wine tasting,
Right.
all those, that money is deposited into the Beach Preservation Trust Fund, a separate fund. And they pay out for the information, the little refrigerator magnets, those sorts of things. So that was set up, I think it was originally set up just to be an advisory board as far as beach expenses, but it expanded out. They started doing other stuff, and it actually worked up into the Beach Preservation Society.
Well, we've talked about this several times over the last few years. I've talked with Steve about it twice last year. That organization needs to be a 501c3, and they need to handle their own monies.
I
They
think,
need to administer their own account.
exactly, and they should come to the town, I think, just like the rest of these outside organizations. Say, would you like, here's our
Well,
program, would you give us some money, please?
the council names the members of that committee, so we would have to,
You'd have to disband the committee and just ask them to set up on their own. I mean,
may I ask a quick question? We have a 501c3 that holds the easement, the conservation easement on the pier. And that is a separate 501c3. The council named the board members to that 501c, the Oak Island Land Trust, LLC. Why can we not transfer that operation over to the Oak Island Land Trust? Because they met one time, the council named the board members. They met one time to name the officers of the board. And that was in 2013, Jim?
I don't remember, somewhere around there, 12.
No, wait a minute, it had to have been 2011, 2012,
That was
because
before we
Yeah.
come on.
it was in 2011, yes.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
In fact, the president of Oak Island Land Trust LLC was named, and it was Johnny Vereen. And they haven't met since he passed away to name new members. So, Tim, if you don't mind, work with Lisa and get the records on Oak Island Land Trust LLC.
We'll check that if they even want to try and combine both groups. One thing too, the board, if they want a 501c3, I think Lisa and I talked about this, it might be that the board assist in them becoming a 501c3 with the funding and then put them on their own. But probably Dave and I, who is the Beach Preservation Chairman?
Roseanne Fortner?
But maybe Dave and Roseanne and I need to meet and just get back on something on this before the next budget
Yeah.
meeting.
I would feel much more comfortable if they were 501c3 and
Yeah.
not coming through us.
So
Yeah.
would I.
Okay.
So we'll get together, and if not, and we'll still get the history on Oak Island Land Trust, but I kind of hesitate to join those two entities, because I don't know if their mission is the same, especially if we have some other things going on.
Yeah,
with
the
community.
original, well, Oak Island Land Trust LLC was formed way back 10, 15 years ago. And they never did anything with it, so it went inactive. And in 2011, they paid the fees for the Department of State, Department of Secretary, and they reactivated that 501c3, and they transferred the conservation easement for the Oak Island Pier to Oak Island Land Trust LLC. So there is a conservation easement held by a separate entity. Now, the council names the board members, but the board members are in total control of that LLC. And it is a 501c3.
We'll work on that and see what we
All
come
right.
back.
A lot of confusion on a small little department.
And maybe we
It
can.
is,
Maybe
but
we can
it's,
eliminate that department.
it's basically, it just over the years, it just kept happening, and council kept approving, and then how did that ever get,
Right, exactly.
yeah, okay.
All right, with all that excitement, now we have the recreation department. Just to highlight, that's the recreation department is account 10620, right behind the recreation tab there. Youth salaries now are broken out from the salary line item, and let's see, I'm trying to think, is there a reason we did that, Dave, on that?
They used to be called youth and seasonal,
Okay,
so she just wanted to go with just call it seasonal.
seasonal,
part-time.
that's right.
Okay.
37,500.
They just put that floor down in the COach room about 2009, 2008.
Well, now Rebecca was telling me that it's in bad shape, but if you want additional information.
What are you talking about?
Part of the capital outlay in the recreation department is to replace the flooring in the COach room, and they just put that flooring down. Lisa, it was after you you picked the color when we repainted the COach room. It's in 08.
I did pick that color.
Yeah, she was the journalist.
Well, that's been 7 years ago.
Yeah, I came here in
Flooring only
2010.
lasts 7 years?
Well, it depends on how much it's used.
Yeah, okay.
I understand it too, it was a floor, was it not? I can't remember if she said they didn't prepare it correctly. There's some things, she told me a little bit about it, and I can't remember all now, but it's in either floor. But I mean, do you want her to come back with more explanation, or are you okay with that? Or
I don't know, if it needs to be replaced, it needs to be replaced, I guess.
And then she says the sign can't be fixed, so
Yeah.
it's part of this cost also is the
Oh,
sign.
yeah, the sign cannot be fixed. They've been begging for a new sign for years.
And one thing I just found out this morning, kayak trailer, she's got another solution to that, but the buildings and ground will probably move up the money from kayak trailer to buildings and grounds, because she needs some additional funding in that.
A truck? How many vehicles does the rec department have already, and why do they need a truck?
I don't know, I think this is a replacement truck. So like I said, I'd have to get Rebecca
Okay.
to give more details. But that's it as far as the items in Parks and Recreation that are outstanding. And one thing she pointed out to me, really important, the sign, they've been making do with the sign, but it's not functional as it is. And so we could actually use more informational signs on that if we had that available, so.
Was we not able to put the golf course in the rec department?
We are, we're still leaving it as a separate, line item in here, but it is under Rebecca, it's one of Rebecca's departments.
Okay,
So,
but we're not transferring nothing out of accommodation tax to pay for it, right? We are?
Yeah, we still are, yes.
Yep, to meet their budget.
Jeff, don't forget, let's look at that when we get to that department,
Yeah.
because I think I know where you're headed, and I think I agree with you 100%, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so that's Parks and Recreation. Community Center, you're familiar with their programs. I don't think there's anything new on that. They don't have any capital needs, et cetera, so, that's a small functionary budget.
Budget's actually a bit less than it was this year.
Now, actually, that's the last of the general fund departments. Now, let's see. Before we move on, employee-related items, okay, y'all kind of bounced around this earlier, but this is time I was allowed to start talking about all those items and benefits. The town switching to the state health plan mid-budget year with projected savings of $68,000 for half the fiscal year. The town would drop short-term disability, resulting in decrease of expenditures of $28,000. I don't know if somebody is aware, the town's been carrying short-term disability on employees for a while, so if you're out of work, you can file for this. It costs the town about $28,000 a year. Employees can get that on their own for about $360 a year. So this is one of the things we decided, and we talked to some of the department heads with the largest departments, and as you'll see in a minute when I get down here, this was one of the things to sacrifice in order to try to keep an employee benefit for spouses, children, and families. And even with the budget rated where it is, we were able to do that because of these savings. This budget that you see before you allows the town, to continue with a step benefit with the employee paying $60 and the town paying $40 for the spouses, children, and families as a result of cutting short-term disability and switching to the state health plan. And then you've talked about COLA 1% and merit up to 2% is proposed. Originally, when this budget was first talked about before I got here, they were talking about a 1.7% COLA and a 3% merit. So
the stepped benefit, isn't that a different percentage based on wages?
no, well, at one time,
It's supposed to be.
well, it was. It doesn't have to be, and this kind of gets everybody more uniform regardless of wages, and it still protects that benefit. So, no, it's proposed now of 60-40, not an individual step of 3 or 4 different steps.
Okay, council members, you guys can look at that before we have the next budget meeting. That was where council approved the percentage paid for families and on the employee benefits and stated that that would be that would be ended this year. I mean, that carries forward from year to year.
Well,
I mean, the council last year, Tim, and the year before were very firm that that would end this year.
But what he's saying here, Mayor, is that if we do away with the short-term disability and go to the 60-40 step plan, that would still offset.
And the way I
It's
understood
fiscal year, yes.
I knew I wasn't here for last budget discussions, but when y'all were during the interview process, we talked about this came up about employee benefits, and I think the reason for dropping it was just the town could not afford it because of the insurance costs going up. So now by switching things and doing away with that, you can actually afford to keep this benefit in some form if you choose it. Now, if you don't, but the savings allow you to do that. So I'm hearing two different, there's two different fields of view on this. One, just not to do it at all, or one that I thought that was the prevailing one, we just couldn't do it because cost was driving it to the point where the town couldn't do it. But that's not the case at this time.
What would the cost be look at the current percentages that are being paid, and the reason those tiers were determined in the first place is because somebody with a family that's making $25,000 a year, they get 60% paid. Somebody with a family that's making $100,000 a year, they only get like 10%. It's not fair to somebody that's only making $25,000 that somebody that's making $100,000 gets the same amount of their family insurance paid. That was the reason for the tiers.
This still will keep one tier. This still will keep one tier. And
Well, that does away with the original reason for having the tiers in the first place. It's not fair to have one tier, in my personal opinion. It is just not fair to those low-paid employees. And it's not fair for the townspeople who can't afford health insurance to pay 60% of the family coverage for somebody that makes $100,000 a year. It's just not
40%.
fair.
40%.
40%.
40%.
Well, any percentage. We've got families in town that have to pay taxes that can't afford health insurance for themselves, but if the council approves this, and I'm stating an opinion here, if the council approves this, they're having to pay for somebody else's family's health coverage, and the council's forcing them to do it.
That's a
opinion.
policy decision council.
Yep.
You can look at different things on that as an employee benefit to keep, retain employees and,
Yep.
decrease.
Let's make a
turnover.
note for the next budget meeting, or when we reconvene this one, to let the council discuss that and determine what they want to do.
And bring us back what the county's doing too. I'd like to know what they're doing.
I think the county cut out all
County
employees.
just cut out all spouse insurance.
Didn't they cut out paying for employees also?
No,
No, just spouses? Okay. Spouses and
And
families.
did we, I thought the tiers went away as of last year.
Did they?
I'm
Well,
not sure.
They were supposed to, but like I said, I keep emphasizing, the only reason I thought they went away was because you could no longer afford it. And now by finding cost savings, I think you can afford it. So I didn't think it went
I
away.
think that was
No,
a
I thi-
matter
I
of
think-
affording it last year as much as it was, it's only fair. Nobody else pays for families and spouses. And check with Sarah, but I believe the tiers were supposed to have still been in place.
The tiers are still in place to the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
Yes.
All of them?
All the tiers are still in place to the
Yeah,
end of the fiscal year.
The 60 and the 40 and the
Something changed last year. I mean, we were phasing out
We
the tiers.
reduced those by a certain percentage. We didn't completely do away with them.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
something changed on that
Two
last year. I'll
things-
have to go look
Two
up.
things happened last year. New hires were not given that benefit, and current hires, it was supposed to end at the end of June 2015.
Right.
This keeps it from ending at a June 2015 if the board approves this in the budget.
Well, why would this be suggested, since the board stated last year that it would end on 2015? I mean, I know you want to try to keep that, but I don't know that the employees would rather keep short-term disability. I mean, that's for 90 days. If they're disabled,
No,
they have
they're
90.
getting rid of.
When we talk to department
I know,
heads, department heads much rather have, department heads and the people in their department much rather have the family, spouse, and children than they have short-term disability. That is a benefit. The short-term disability, they didn't think was, the percentage of people who've used it in town is probably less than less than 0.5% of any town employee. So the other coverage would benefit the employees much more than short-term disability will. But like I said,
Can you
and
get a spreadsheet to the council showing showing by department we've always had just a showing by department, doesn't have to do it by individual employees, but the total health benefits and the total cost to the town for the employee. There's a column that shows the employee, and then a column that shows the families.
we can do that.
And we can get a grand total from the general fund and then from the other funds of what we pay for employees and then for family and spouse coverage. And that would give it would give the council a grand total of what we're paying out and let them decide whether they want to continue that on into the next fiscal year or not.
Tim, just
Yes,
a
sir.
quick question, and I think you've already answered this, but I want you to answer it again. If we did what you proposed and did away with the short-term disability, would the savings offset the cost of the 60-40 split plan?
Yes, it would.
So it's basically no cost to the town.
No increase,
It'd be a
exactly.
benefit to the employees.
It's keeping benefit to employees at no additional cost to the town.
And that's also coupled with the fact that we're saving money going to this state health care plan.
Yeah, that's in there too.
Hopefully, January 1st. if,
Correct, and everything's on board with that. We just have to wait for the bill to have its final reading. We've already been talked with the state, and like I said, we're probably 80% there on getting that done.
So there is a slight possibility we may be able to enter the state plan July 1st?
Not July 1st, it's
No,
still
okay.
January, but these savings are based on just half a year savings. So, you even save even more once you
Yeah.
go to this plan full, year round.
Well, I'm gonna look it up, but I need to be reminded what the benefit, remaining of the benefit is in place this year.
For the family
Because
coverage?
I didn't think it was at the level of 40% being paid by the town.
No, it's not. It's not. There's three
That's
different
what he's
tiers now.
suggesting.
This is what we're proposing for the fiscal 15-16.
Yeah. I would like to see the tiers on the current budget, showing the tiers on the percentages that are being paid.
The current budget.
Yes.
And then we'll decide
Then look at
whether
this
we
one.
even go forward with anything.
Yeah. And to compare apples to apples, can we look at what the benefit would be to each employee based on the tiers?
We can, I think,
Okay.
Sarah has that.
If I do remember, I remember the council was very much in favor of the tiers because it's just not fair.
Well, I mean, another argument to look at that is every family has their budget and has expenditure, so even whether you make $30,000 or $60,000 a year is gonna help either family out. And if you're able to keep that benefit, then you also don't have to worry about any discrimination. It's the same for everybody. I understand, and, but even keeping it is a benefit because, as you were talking before, it was gonna go away. And so, anyway, we'll get your information and let you decide on that point. And
Okay.
One question. I noticed where you showed the employee expenses on just about all these departments, where your benefit expense, the bottom line, does that number represent the change in the insurance plan, or is that the old plan carried through all the way, all year? So there would be a reduction in that number if we go to the state plan.
Some deduction, but the main deduction is an HRA, because that's where the savings shows up in the budget. Is HRA is not as much as it is because it's not going to be a full year.
Okay.
So that's where your savings shows up.
Got that call.
He's booked the HRA at what they expect, yeah.
And the HRA goes away mid-year. That will not, when the state health plan starts, there will no longer be an HRA. All right, so that's employee-related items. So now some of those budget sheets, I guess we'll try to get those, Excel spreadsheets. Sarah may try to get those to you before the next workshop, so you can discuss it then. All right.
Do you intend to go now into the utilities?
No, it's about 10 to 3, so if that's okay, unless you want to, I don't have the slides prepared, so if you want to
We can
force
do
through,
that at the next meeting.
we can do that. And I think we'll have time. What's not included in this budget so far, some things just to let you know that, are out there looming that we didn't address, and these are just some of them. No funding to address A-frame building at Bill Smith Park. That's a problematic building, it floods. I don't know if we need to tear it down, build a new building. That's just a white elephant out there that's gonna have to be addressed at some point. So this does not address that.
And Tim, be sure to check with David Kelly because there's some issues with that sewer being there, that septic tanks being there with the irrigation field. They were kind of grandfathered in. So check with him. I think one of the reasons that they haven't done a whole lot with that A-frame is because if you do a whole lot, then you've got to get you got to install sewer. You can't have a septic tank anymore. That one's in there. If you do much, you're going to lose that building altogether.
I think what's been talked about so far is not even replacing it, but that might be probably, some people still use that building, but just tearing it down and cleaning it up. That's what kind of being talked about at staff level.
Did we not get prices on filling in that basement?
We may have. I've heard George mention that at one time, but I don't remember seeing I have not seen any price sheets.
I'd like to see the numbers on that, because if we could do that in salvage, that's a good building. I mean, it would cost you a lot of money to reproduce that building. And if we could fill that basement in and get rid of that water problem, I know it would involve some wiring, some wiring panels would have to be moved and that kind of thing. But Castle Beach had a similar problem with some of their buildings, and that's what they did. They had the crawl space, the basement part filled in and just made a crawl space.
We can look into that. If somebody mentioned scenic walkover at the board meeting the other night, there's no funding for a scenic walkover West End in this budget, so no funding for beach construction, for sedimentation, erosion control, or beach nourishment, other than the money just to pay for the Moffett Nickel study and I think a little bit of reserve out of the accommodations.
Before you get off of that topic, could you, I know you have said to us that you think that we should not establish that beach nourishment fund this year out of property taxes. Why?
I think, to me, I would just rather have a long-term plan before it's engaged. You could do it, but let's say, for example, you decide we're going to have a 3-cent beach nourishment tax or a 7-cent beach nourishment tax. Right now, the only thing I can tell people when they call me is, yes, this is saving up for a plan, we're working on a plan, we don't have any, we're just going to bank this money. It's just that I don't have a lot more to tell them than that. It's not that you can't do it, because in reality, even if you wait a year from now, you're gonna have to say whether it's 5 cent, 10 cent, or 15 cent tax, you're gonna have to save that money up for 4 to 5 years before you can do a project. And, that is going to require that the board be 100% in favor of it and supporting it, because you'll have to hear these people tell you for 5 years, where are my taxes going? Well, we're putting them in the bank, because you have to put them in the bank to be able to afford a $30, $40, $50 million project. And even then, we have to have cooperation from the state. So it's not so much that you can't do it, but I just want to be, you run the risk of being hit twice for taxes, where you taxed me this time for 5 cents, now this year you add another 10 cent to it. So I just didn't feel comfortable in my short tenure here and ramping up and doing that, because, that's one reason as far as staff-wise, I would prefer a longer time. If the board thinks it's politically feasible and people want to go ahead and start doing for it now, I think it's okay. But just know that whatever you come up with, unless you go with a 10-cent tax across the board for everybody right now, you may not have to go up too much. But if you do a 5, or if you do a smaller amount, that's not going to be the only tax involved ever.
All right, let me ask a question. At the very beginning of this meeting, you noted that revenue neutral tax rate would have been around 29 some odd cents.
Correct.
And you're suggesting leaving the tax rate at 27 and a half.
Correct.
It's 1.76
Correct.
cents per 100 valuation.
Correct.
During the fiscal year, if we got a presentation from Moffitt Nickel and the council liked it and they wanted to hire them for that, the council could at any time during the fiscal year approve a project review by Moffitt Nickel and fund it from the general fund based on that 1.76 cents in savings.
Only if you if you set a tax rate of revenue neutral. See what I'm saying? I'm not suggesting tax rate of 27 and a half. You'd have to go ahead and increase that tax rate to 29.86.
But the audit shows we're gonna go to 60%.
And you could earmark that for that.
You could earmark it for beach nurse.
But if we did a nickel tax increase this year to designate the beach renourishment, that would raise $1,165,000 this year. We gotta start somewhere. I don't know.
I mean, the beach after Anna, I mean, it's taken a bad hit. And I think, with the West End project, with the hit that we got from Anna and everybody saying, where's my sand? I don't know why we don't want to start it, but, I guess we can talk about it some more.
I got another project in mind so
What?
that we don't have to go it alone. I'd like to.
Well, we don't want to go it alone.
No.
Well, I know that, but I think there needs to be, after this presentation we had, there needs to be some real discussion with the county about
Absolutely.
setting up districts that surround Caswell Beach, Oak Island, and then the other beach communities where these other towns who enjoy our beach just as much as we do contribute a tax for beach renourishment so the towns do not go it alone. And I think we need to pursue that and make sure this gets going, because we gotta stop talking about we can do all this alone and all these taxpayers foot the bill.
No, I
Everybody
never,
uses the beach.
no, I never was in trying to hint that we would be doing it alone, because we would be dependent on
State
the
funding.
county.
Oh, yeah.
And how they wish to collect those funding. I think they see it, and I think they're we'll be in a lot of discussion with them at groups like the Brunswick Coastal Communities.
One fine group, I might add.
I can tell you, when Steve Foster and I went to those county commissioners' meetings, when we were asking for the $500,000 for the Eastern Channel project, and they had given, the year before, they had given $285,000 to Holden for their piggyback project with the Corps. The county commissioners were speaking about it then, and they're speaking about it in their budget sessions. They are going to develop a process of designating funds each year for these beach communities to assist in the projects that we have. If we don't have any projects, we don't get any of that county money.
The magic word is assist.
Right.
And if we don't have something in place
Right.
to begin to prepare for this, we're gonna get caught bad. And I'm telling you right now, we need to do something about this issue, and we need to do it quick.
I think we really need to start discussions with them.
I think we need to start discussions among ourselves right now, what we're gonna do
We
as a
get it
town.
started.
And because we can't depend on what the county's gonna do. They couldn't even give us $500,000 at one time.
Exactly.
They had to break it up into 5 yearly payments. So what are we gonna do as a town? It's our responsibility, it's our beach. And if we don't maintain it, it's not gonna get maintained. We can sit back here another year, another 2 years, and wait, and we're gonna get caught with our pants down, and it's not gonna be pretty. And I'm telling you, this is the biggest issue we got facing us right now, and we've got to do something about it.
Is there consensus on the board that in our next draft, we actually show a 5 or 7 cent BIS?
Can you show that as a separate number and
Show it as a revenue. What
do
would
the
happen
comparisons
is-
before and
is,
after?
We would show where you have, on your general fund revenues, Dave and I talked a little bit about it. I'll show you where it will show up.
All right.
Where we have, current year taxes, if you could go back to the front of your notebook under, general fund revenue 10. The very top line item is the 10-301-0100, current year taxes.
Right.
And before you put prior year taxes, I guess we'd probably go, 10-301-0110, some kind of different number, but we would have, that would be your beach nourishment tax or beach inlet sound tax, whatever you want to name it, and we would show it as 2 separate line items. And that's the way to always show people where that money's going, and so we can do that.
And we could make sure that we designate that money to go into the B-tax fund. That B-tax fund is beach renourishment. It's not the accommodations tax that can be used on, for sidewalks.
That's
It
right.
goes into the B-tax. Okay. And Councilor Weinkoff, keep in mind, if the council determines to, like, pay the golf course, the deficit from, general fund revenues instead of the accommodations tax, that's gonna help quite a bit
Oh, yeah.
in helping the drain on our A-tax.
But also, since this is gonna be a big project, we need 2 public hearings to get the public's input to hear what they got to say.
A big project, what do you mean a big project?
We're gonna tax people 5 to whatever cent extra on their taxes. It's their money. They have say-so. We shouldn't impose it if they don't want it.
All right, well, now we have it, all right, Jeff, now wait a minute.
Sit here and said there would be no big projects in this town without their approval.
Okay, I understand, that's it, but this, I understand, and I agree, it would be good to have 2 public hearings. You have to set the tax rate by July 1st.
Right.
You can't impose a tax in the middle of a fiscal year. We are in the middle of May right now, and this budget has to be approved by June 1st.
Right.
June 30th.
Whose money is it though? Is it ours or is it theirs?
When, I would like for you to, let's look and see when we can schedule 2 separate budget public hearings. You always have your budget public hearing in the June council meeting, okay? It's the first item. So if you can, we can look and schedule 2 budget public hearings in the month of June.
Yeah.
And make note that it's for the entire budget, it's not just
Right.
for this,
Right.
this new beach nourishment tax, okay? So can we look at, everybody agree, we want to do 2 budget hearings in the month of June? Everybody agree? Okay. Help us, in the month of June, schedule, one of the public hearings at the regular town council meeting, and perhaps we could schedule a public hearing like a week or so after. And then the council, could approve the budget after the second public hearing. Okay,
You getting that, Lisa?
long as it's in the month of June.
All right, we can do
And
that.
we've had budget workshops as late as June the 28th before.
And one other thing, and I need to belabor the point too much on this, you know, I kind of looked at this as a step when you're trying to get people on board, or if they want, see if they want to do this. You get an engineering plan, they tell you how much it's gonna cost. Then there's another gentleman I work with before who comes in and tries to put it in real people terms about how much it's gonna cost you, if it's gonna be 2 extra meals out a year, or what's it gonna cost for you, the homeowner, and have several work sessions on that. So that, the only thing that, Of course, that's for the larger tax, you know, but for a 5-cent tax, it's not as crucial, but still, we're losing that time to do that kind of work that I had envisioned going through for a long-term beach tax, so.
Exactly. Look back at the presentation that Moffett and Nickel did, and the other group that was doing the presentations to get the Eastern Channel Project engineering. I believe Moffett and Nickel included in one of their presentations what they saw at that point that it would take to do the entire beach renourishment plan. Remember, don't you remember they came up with like $40 to some odd million?
Well, I mean, and plus,
So we've
every
already
time.
we've already got one presentation by Moffett and Nickel for that.
You got fine, but you don't have the detail.
Right, right.
Well, people have heard over and over, it costs $3 to $5 million per mile. They have heard that over and over. And they're gonna go out on that beach right now, and they look at those dunes between 58th Street East and 58th Street West,
Yeah.
and see the dunes are gone.
And Tim, I
Not
think,
gone, but they are chopped off. It's a severe escarpment.
and yes, I agree with you that it would be nice to have a plan before you, but we have known for quite a few years that we have got to start funding that B-tax, because we have got to do, the Brunswick Beaches GRR. The Corps spent $8 million on that, and we didn't have to pay it until we start putting sand on the beach. But we have had a plan from the Corps for years, and federal funding dried up. So we already have been looking for a long time with Castle and Holden about a beach renourishment plan. So there has been steps taken to develop a plan.
Well, if we do that, does the board have any objection if we change it, if we put like 7 cent for a beach nourishment tax and just let that be a draft and it can be stricken out and it have to be approved just so we have some kind of numbers to,
I would like for you as the town manager to recommend us what you think it should be.
okay. All right.
Put you on the spot.
No,
Maybe
I
give
mean,
us a range.
You know, you've got the numbers and you've got the time to deal with this and the expertise to know how to deal with it. Come back to us with some numbers and let's look at it. But
I mean,
And give it Dawn at Moffett and Nickel. Give her a call. Say, okay, I know you did this presentation. What was your estimate?
not Dawn, Johnny Martin.
Johnny Martin?
Johnny
Okay.
Martin.
Well, but this number would be a starting point.
Right.
It's not going to be enough.
Sure. You gotta start somewhere.
It would take us 15 years at that
Well, it
amount
probably
to
wouldn't
even
hurt
get
to show
started.
the starting number, mid, and full funding number so folks know where it's going to, because like I said, I know as a manager, the only thing I fear is that, man, they passed a 5 cent tax, and telling me we need more money, and then we were never supposed to have any more money to do this, and so, that,
And what was the last thing you said?
it's like like, a 5 cent was always gonna never take. It was never gonna take. And
we'll
so,
see,
I just
yeah.
want to avoid that, because I've been there, done that before, and people they just don't understand. They may have heard it for the last 10 years.
They
I
don't
guarantee
understand.
you, they don't understand it.
We have some of the same people that were complaining about putting that beach sand on the west end, that God's gonna take it away, erosion is gonna take it away, it's not gonna last. And the same people after Anna are raising mortal you-know-what, because we're not pushing sand and repairing those beach accesses and repairing those dunes.
What you know what?
What? Same people.
Well, again, I rest my point. We gotta start somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't wanna wait a year or 2 years to start.
We'll come back with a
We've
good
gotta
number.
start somewhere.
we'll come back with a good number and have it in there as a draft.
Right.
And, Madam Mayor, before we finish up here, I think we need another date for the next budget workshop when everybody's gonna be here.
Didn't we tentatively schedule next Thursday, the 21st?
I thought we did, we talked about it.
At 3 p.m.?
Well, I don't have it on my calendar, but maybe we do.
Everybody check your calendars,
It
because
was,
I've got it
it
on
was in
mine.
an email, I don't know, it was,
Oh,
that
I
it
think
was
we may
sent.
have, but I wanted to confirm it, why, so you're saying,
Opposed or
Pardon?
we could do, next
Your
Friday?
Check your calendar.
You're
You're
off
off next Friday?
Okay.
The 22nd?
Okay,
What
Everybody,
time?
22nd at 3 p.m. Friday?
No, let's do it earlier in the day.
Let's make it,
Can we do it earlier in the day?
yeah,
if
let's
he's
do it
off?
earlier in the day.
Oh, you're off, 10 a.m.? What?
Well, I guess so you want to do the 22nd on Friday? you rather do it early in the morning? I was still hoping for like a 1 o'clock on that Friday instead of
I
10.
don't care.
All right.
Okay, fine.
1 o'clock.
I mean, that, if we're working something tight, it gives us that morning to kind of get it together.
Get the printer going.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, 1 o'clock next Friday?
1 o'clock.
Okay.
The 22nd. And what we will do, we will recess this meeting and reconvene at 1 PM on Friday, the 22nd. Chair will entertain a motion, or do we have to have a motion to recess? Lisa,
I'm sorry,
I don't-
hold on 1 second.
I can just
Sorry,
recess.
ma'am?
We don't need a motion to recess, do we?
Yes, but I also have a question too.
Please.
Would council consider having, you talked about having 2 public hearings. Could I have one before your June 9th meeting? And that would still give you some time in June if you need to have another budget workshop or. you
Have
know,
one before the regular June meeting?
You could have one on June 2nd, the Tuesday before, and then have one June 9th as well.
All right, I tell you what, let's, all the
Just
council members.
on one issue or on the whole
On
budget?
budget, just on the, budget public hearing.
On
Have it
June the 2nd. All the council members, please look at your calendars, and next week, when we reconvene, we will that be 10 days in advance?
Well, you just can't adopt, I have to publish, now that the draft has been prepared, I have to publish notice of that. And then you can't adopt it sooner than 10 days after I publish, which you're not gonna do anyway. I mean, that's,
So
that'll give us
June
time.
the 2nd, if we wait until next week,
when we have the public hearing, doesn't enter into that. You just can't adopt it sooner than 10 days after you've given the public notice that it's prepared.
You comply with all the time limits, even next week is what Lisa's
Okay,
saying.
so you're gonna publish it next week?
Yes.
So if the council, give them time to look at their calendars,
I'm
and then
good.
next week on Friday, everybody, okay, June the 2nd? What time?
What are we doing June 2nd?
Public hearing, first public hearing, and then have the second public hearing at the regular town council meeting in June.
Do the public hearing late so people can be here.
June the 2nd at, let me see,
6 o'clock,
let me check my
just like
calendar.
regular meeting time.
I mean, just make sure everybody can be here.
Smartphone is an oxymoron. If I can't be here, it's 5:22, and we said 1 PM next week. And then June the 2nd, what time on June the 2nd?
Saying 6.
6 PM, okay. Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to recess until Friday, May 22nd at 1 PM. So moved by Counselor Medlin, second Counselor Weinkoff. All those in favor? And it is unanimous.